the first thing to know is this is not a great quarterback class. I'm not breaking any news there. It's pretty widely held opinion that this draft class isn't close to last year's. I think it's relatively unanimous that the first three guys from last year, Caleb Williams with the Bears, Jaden Daniels with the Commanders, Drake May with the Patriots, would be the number one overall pick if they were in this year's class. They aren't. And so now you're left with Cam Ward from the University of Miami, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, Tyler Shuck from Louisville, Quinn Ewers from Texas, Will Howard from Ohio State. When you look at the class, I think a big piece of this is wrapping your head around which flaws you are most comfortable with. And at the very top of the class, I think you see a little bit of a separation now from Cam Ward to the next guy. And this is really interesting to me because part of the reason that Cam Ward went to the University of Miami last year and transferred there from Washington State and pulled his name out of the draft is because he was seen at this time last year as a day 3 pick. So how do you go from being a day 3 pick to potentially a top 5 pick? It happened, I think, in large part because he became more consistent. Teams saw flashes at Incarnate Word at Washington State of the ceiling that Cam Ward has. What they didn't see was much consistency. Now he goes to Miami. He's got better teammates around him. He's got a really great offensive line, and he winds up becoming a Heisman finalist. So I think what you saw was a more consistent effort over the course of a full season. You didn't see the drop-off that you saw maybe in previous seasons when he went up against better competition. And so now you're hoping that that trajectory keeps going up. And the trajectory is an important piece of this because especially if you're the Titans or the Browns and you're operating in an AFC where you're going to have to beat some combination of Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. You're going to have to beat these guys in succession in the playoffs. You have to beat multiple of these guys to make it to the Super Bowl. Your question is, can one of these quarterbacks elevate to the level where they'll be able to compete with those guys in the AFC? And I think Cam Ward, what separates him from the pack here is he's the one guy where teams can look at it and say, physically, I can envision it happening. The more teams I talk to about this, the more you hear Shedeur is just sort of average physically, and he may not have a superpower as a quarterback. Now, he's plenty smart. He's tough. His intangibles are good. All that stuff is there with Shedeur. He's going to have to prove over the next 2 months that he has special traits, and that can be hard to do in the sorts of settings that you're going to be in over the next couple of months. So there's some split opinion on where Shedeur's ceiling is. Then after that, how close is Jackson Dart to Shedeur? I think he's closer to Jackson Dart than a lot of people might realize. And then you go further down the line. Tyler Shuck, again from Louisville, played 7 years in college, but he's got a lot of intriguing physical traits. Quinn Ewers, they played at a high level, got hurt this year, was really dealing with injuries the entire year at Texas. There's just a lot of questions with all of them. And so this isn't a great year to need one. And so I think you look at the top of the draft, the question is, do we want to chase the ceiling of Cam Ward? And do we think Cam Ward can get to the level where he can compete with a Mahomes, an Allen, a Burrow, a Jackson? Because if you are taking a guy that high, you're tethering your job security to him, and you're saying eventually with the right pieces around him, he can get us there. So that's where the quarterbacks are.